Have you ever wanted to create an epic alien abduction scene in Unreal Engine 5? In this tutorial, I'll guide you through every step of the process. You'll learn how to model a UFO, build an environment, set up some cool sci-fi lighting, and bring your characters to life with Mixamo to MetaHuman animation. By the end, you'll have the skills to create a stunning scene that's out of this world. Let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do is add a MetaHuman to my scene so that when I model my UFO, I have reference. So under Quixel Bridge here, you can find MetaHumans here, and I've selected Coda, which was hard because all of them are just staring directly into my soul. But I'm going to go ahead and add Coda to my scene now and zero out his location. Then I'm going to head to modeling mode, and I'm going to select this revolve path, and this tool is excellent for creating round objects like a UFO. So now I'm going to go ahead and start modeling out the silhouette of my UFO. And I'm going to hit accept, and now I can refine this further by going to model, selecting polygroup edit. I'm going to just select edges under selection filter, and I'm also going to turn on select edge loops. This way I can select the whole circle of edges that I needed, and I'm going to select all the edges that I'd like to bevel so that I could round them out. So under edge edits here, I'm going to go to bevel, and I'm going to make the bevel distance 10 and the subdivisions 3. And then I'm going to hit accept and accept again. And to make it even more smooth, I'm going to go to subdivide here, and I'm going to change the normal compilation method from generate to interpolate. And then I'm going to hit accept. And now I'm going to go back to create mode, and I'm going to start building out geometry for the lights of my UFO. So I'm going to add a torus, and the major radius makes it bigger, and the minor radius can make it thicker or thinner. I'm going to give this a value of 5. And I'm also going to increase the major slices so it's not so jaggedy. I'm going to make it 60 so it's nice and smooth. Then I'm going to raise this up, and I want this to go on my most outer radius of my UFO. So I'm going to increase this. Maybe increase it a little bit more. And I'm going to zero this out after I finish creating it, so I don't have to get it perfectly in the middle, but I want to make sure it expands outward. Let me make it 3, 4, 6. And then I'm going to hit accept. And now I'm just going to center it on the X and the Y. And I'm going to make sure my UFO is centered on there as well. And while I'm here, I'm just going to rename it by hitting F2 and then typing in UFO. And now I'm going to add another loop, and I'm going to make it go just below my other one. So let's go ahead and make the radius 300 and push it up. Let's make it 280. Yeah, I'm happy with this, so I'm going to hit accept. Let's go ahead and zero it out on the X and Y and then push it down some. Nice. And so one more thing I want to do is add some sphere lights. So I'm going to hide Coda for this, and I'm also going to push the floor down to -500. And I'll delete that once I start adding a landscape. So I'm going to add a sphere. And let's go ahead and change the radius. I'm going to make it 5. And then we can just hit accept. And a cool feature here under Xform is this pattern button. So I'm going to change the shape from line to circle. And now we have a circle of the spheres. And I'm going to increase the count to 16. So there's 16 spheres. And let's decrease the radius. I want this to go around this. And I'm going to increase it a little bit. Let's go ahead and make it 85. I think that's good, so now I'm going to hit accept. Let's go ahead and I can't zero it here because the pivot is not in the middle, so I'm just going to move it to the best of my ability. Now I'm going to put them inward. And one thing to note is the sphere that you created them with will stick around, so just be sure to delete it from your scene if you don't want it. I'm going to use it to create another outer ring just below my second torus that I created. So let's go ahead and go back to pattern here. And I'm going to increase the radius. Let's try 250. I think that's a little bit too much, so I'm going to try 225. Let's try 230. I think that's good. And I'm going to hit accept, and now let me push them upwards. But let me go back for a second. and do the circle again because I wanted to make sure that they're 32. So I'm going to increase the count to 32 and then I'm going to pull them over. And then I can hit accept and now I can push them upward, maybe over a little bit. Nice. And so then let me just delete the sphere now, and now we're ready to add textures. So I found this texture in Quixel Bridge and it is called Hot Blue Steel. And I'll post a screenshot of that if you want to add it exactly. And it looks kind of weird in the daylight, but with nighttime it'll look great. And so now I'm going to add a light material. So I'm going to go to my materials folder and I'm going to right click and add a material. I'm going to call this M_light_UFO. Then I'm going to double click to open it. And I'm going to keep this really simple and just hold down 3 and click and then drag and drop this into the emissive color. And I'm going to add a dark teal. I don't want it to be too bright because I want the main focus to be on the lights that are picking up coda. And then I'm going to hit apply. And now I'm going to select my geometry that I want to add it to and add it here. And one thing to note is the lights here. You're going to need to add the light directly to the pattern. And let's go ahead and attach like elements. I'm just going to attach them all. And then with X form still selected, go to merge, and I'm just going to call them UFO_lights. And I can hit accept. And now I'm going to group these together by right clicking and go to move to create new folder. I can just F2 and call it UFO. So now it's grouped together. And we're ready to move on to section 2. So I'm going to unhide coda and let's get started in landscaping and environment. So I can delete the floor since I'll be adding a landscape, and let's go into landscape mode now. And I've already added a material here and I turned on tiling to 0.1 and 0.1. I'm using the forest floor, which I found in Quixel Bridge. And then let's go ahead and zero out the Y location and I'm gonna hit create. And now before I do any sort of sculpting, I'm gonna create a level sequence so I can add a camera and start composing my shot cinematically. So let's go to add level sequence. I'm gonna find my sequence folder and I'm gonna call it SQ Alien. And now I can go here and select create camera here, and I'm gonna go to Syn Camera Actor. Then let's drag and drop this into here. The first thing I'm going to change is the current focal length. I'm going to make this 85, and then with my camera selected, I'm going to make this from 16:9 digital film to 16:9 DSLR. Then let's go ahead and make our focus in our camera set to tracking, and then let's select Coda here so that he's in focus. So under actor to tracked, I'm going to select Coda, and now he will be the focus of my camera, which is nice. And so now let's go ahead and find a camera's position. And for this, I'll go to cinematic viewport and I'm gonna enable the 2x2 grid so that I can have my subject be center in my scene. And now it's just time to frame my camera. And then I can go ahead and lift up the UFO. I think that's good. So now I can go back into my default viewport. Let's go ahead and key our camera. So then if I move around, it's still stuck on the key, which is very nice. Now I'll go back to landscape mode and sculpt the landscape just a little bit. I want this to be a meadow, so it's not gonna be too mountain-esque, but it's not gonna be completely flat. So I'm just gonna give it a little bit of volume. And I can hold shift to go the opposite way. And I'm happy with this, just a little bit of bumps. So nice, now let's go ahead and head into foliage mode. And so I'll be adding some wild grass and some buttercups, which I found in Quixel Bridge. So I'm just gonna add a couple of these buttercups and I'm gonna add more grass. And now for the wild grass, I'm gonna select these lucky ones. And now with them all selected, I'm going to change their density to, let's say 200. And now let's scroll up and we're working with the paintbrush. I'm gonna make their density here 0.4. Let's go ahead and increase this. And let's turn off our UFO because I don't want to paint that. not everything, just the UFO. And then I'm going to paint. And now I can go up a little bit and paint back here. And I think that's all will need for my camera. And let's go ahead and go to select mode here, and let's type in LOD and then find foliage.LOD distance scale and then spacebar 5 enter, and that just helps the grass look better. So now I'm gonna add some trees to here, so I'm gonna uncheck all of my little plants, and now let's go to add some Megascan trees. You can find these on Quixel Bridge, they're free, which is awesome. And so I'm just gonna add a selection here, and I'm actually going to add the European hornbeam. So I'm gonna add the ones that have a lot of leaves. And I'm happy with these, so I'm gonna drag and drop them in. And I'm gonna make it so that the back is more foresty and the front I'm more selective with my trees, so it just kind of frames the camera. So with these, I'm going to go up to paint again. Let's go ahead and make the brush size 1000. Let's change their density to 1. Since they're trees, they're a lot bigger than grass and they need a lot smaller density. Then I'm just going to paint back here. Little forest in the background. Let's make sure they're everywhere. Need some more over here. And that's cool. So now let's go ahead and go to the single mode, and I'm gonna deselect them and then just pick some ones that I think will look good in the foreground, and that one's too big. So let me go to scale here and let me lower it to just 1. That's pretty good. Let's turn the UFO back on, and I'll move these and adjust them more in a little bit. Let me add another tree for variety. And then let me add a bit more in the middle ground here. And I can select a couple, that way I can get more variety. And when you're doing this with the single mode, make sure that your cycle through selected is turned on, or else it'll paste them all at once, which you do not want. And so now I'm going to go into selection mode here and just refine how these are looking. So this front tree, I'm going to go ahead and scale it down just a bit, maybe a bit more. And I'm happy with that. Let's go ahead and scale up one of these. You can rotate it as well. I'm gonna scale this up even more. No, no I'm not. Let's make a baby tree. I'm gonna delete one of these because it's pretty full with the one behind it. Let's go ahead and scoot this one over. Happy with how this is framing out. And now for this one, I don't like that it's touching my UFO. I want my UFO to be really clean here. So I'm going to scoot this over. And let's change up this branch here. I can scoot this a little bit more out here. I can scoot this one a little bit further as well. Let's go ahead and rotate this tree a little bit, see if we can find a better branch. I'm happy with this. So now I'm ready to start working on lighting. I'm going to go back to selection mode, and I'll also be using Ultra Dynamic Sky for this scene. An Ultra Dynamic Sky is an amazing plugin you can get in Epic Game Marketplace. It also comes with a weather system. Highly recommend getting this. Let me know if you want me to do a tutorial just on this. But for right now, I'm going to change the time of day to 0 to make it a night scene. And I'm going to change the cloud coverage to 0.85, the fog to 3, and the night brightness to we'll do it 0.1 for now. And let's go ahead and type star in here. And then I'm going to increase the star intensity to 10 and the star tiling to 10 as well. And then let's type in moon. And I'm going to check on this manually positioned moon, so then I can select this wedge it here and I can start moving the moon. So let me locate the moon first, and I'm going to increase its scale just so I can see it better. So it looks like the moon's over there, so let's go ahead and push it this way. Let me go back to my camera. Let's go ahead and scale it down. I'm gonna make it 1. And then I'm gonna change the moon light color to something teal. A little darker. And I'm happy with this. And then I'm gonna make the moon light color just white to bring out more contrast for it. And now I'm gonna add a post-processing volume to my scene. Let's type in unbound here. And go ahead and check this on so that what we do affects our whole scene. And then we can go under local exposure. I'm gonna check on shadow contrast, and I'm just gonna make this 0.1. And I'm gonna add some detail strength. I'm gonna make this 1.5. I'm gonna increase the medium gray bias to 1.5. And now let's go back to our ultra dynamic sky, and let's decrease the overall night brightness to 0.04. And now let's turn on some volumetric fogs. I'm gonna type in fog here and scroll down till I find use volumetric fog, and this will really allow our lights to become more rays, which will look nice, especially for an alien abduction. So I'm going to increase the volumetric distance, and I'm also going to make the volumetric fog extinction 8. I'm going to check in render global volumetric material, and I'm going to increase the fog noise to 1.6, and I'm going to set the ground fog height to 130. And now let's start adding some lights to our scene. So I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go to lights and then add a spotlight. I'm going to go ahead and zero this out and then lift it up. I can increase the attention radius to bring it down so it meets the floor. And let's go ahead and type volumetric here. And let's go ahead and go down and increase the volumetric scattering intensity. And this will increase the amount of light you see within the fog, which is quite nice. So I'm going to give this a value of 4. Let's change the color, make it something teal. I'm going to hit accept. And we can also adjust the cone diameter, the cone radius. And then I'm going to increase the attention radius, and I want this one to be light. Then I'm going to add another one and make the cone radius less. Let's go for 25. And this will kind of create a little gradient of the lights, which I think will look nice. So I'm going to give this a value of 25. And then one more. And let's decrease this even more to 5. And let's say 2 for the inner cone. And I'm going to give this a value of 50. And so now we have some lights going on. And let me go ahead and adjust the lights on my UFO and make them, I'm going to make this value here a lot lower, just 0.01, and then hit apply. And now we got a more subtle effect happening there. And so I'm going to add one more point light. Let me zero it out, and I'm going to push it up so it's inside my UFO. Let's go ahead and make the value here 2 and change the color to the teal. Okay, let's make this 4. And this just kind of helps give a little bit more of a silhouette to my UFO. So now I'm going to add some lights going down from my sphere lights. And instead of using an actual light to do that, I don't want to create more flickering. So I'm actually going to use a cylinder. So I'm going to go back to modeling mode. I'm going to add a cylinder to my scene. And I'm going to make the radius 5 to thin it out and the height 1200. Then I'm going to hit accept, and I'm going to rotate this 180 here, so then the pivot will be at the top when I raise it. I'm just going to make this 180 to make it sure it's straight. And then we can zero out the X and the Y transform to make sure it's center in our UFO, so that when I go to X form and pattern, it's coming from the middle. I'm going to change the shape here from line to circle, Then I'm going to increase the count to 16 to match the amount of spheres that I have. And let's go ahead and decrease our radius now to match our inner spheres. And then I'm going to hit accept. Let's go ahead and bring these up. And now I want these to have a light material, so I'm going to go to my materials folder and right click to open up a material. I'm going to name it M_light_down. Double click to open it, and let's change the blend mode from opaque to translucent. Then hold down 3 and click to add a color constant. I'm going to plug this into the emissive color, and I'm going to give it a dark teal value. Okay, and then I'm gonna make the opacity something really small because I want this to just be visible. So I'm gonna make it 0.0025. Then I'm gonna hit apply. And now I'm going to drag and drop this into my cylinder pattern. Nice. And so now I'm gonna go back to my cylinder that was still there, and I'm gonna shorten it. I'm gonna now apply lights to the outer spheres. So let me go ahead and see how that looks. That looks good to me, so I'm going to select it again. And then go back to pattern here. And let's go ahead and increase this. I believe I had it at 230. Let's increase the count to 32. And then something cool that we can do here is under rotation. We can play with this rotation here so you get some direction with it. So I'm happy with this. And then let me just make sure that it's meeting the UFO here. Let me go ahead and decrease this to, let's say, to 25. And I'm gonna hit accept. And then go back to my camera. Let's go ahead and add this to those cylinders. And then we can delete our cylinder that got left behind. And now let's go ahead and adjust our spotlights a little bit. I'm going to increase this one to 15. And let's increase this one to 40. Nice. And so now all that's left to do is animate Coda and adjust the camera movement, and then we'll have a cinematic alien abduction. I'll be using Mixamo to animate Coda, and in Mixamo here, I added a Manny mannequin, and I'll include both Manny and Quinn FBXs in my description below for you to download. And it's nice to use these Unreal mannequins as they retarget better and smoother to the MetaHumans. And so after you upload the FBX here, go ahead and type in floating, and I'm using this animation. And then I adjusted some of the things here, so I increased the posture to 75 just so that he's floating backwards. And I made the lean 75 too and I made the lean 0 because I was happy with how that looked. And I increased the movement range as well as the character arm space because I want him to really be reaching. I think that would create a better silhouette. And I decreased the overdrive to 0 to slow things down. I kind of want this to feel out of worldly, so slowing down time as he's going up I think would create a cool effect. And then the last thing I did was I increased the amount of frames that this would be. And then I'm just downloading my character, and I'm downloading the frames at 24, and I'm using Whisk Skin, and I have the keyframe reduction set to uniform. So then you just have to hit download. And once the download is complete, go ahead and add it to your content browser. So I made an animation folder here, and then I'm just going to drag and drop the download in. And you can just hit import all. And now if you right click on animation sequence here, there's this really awesome feature in 5.4 where you can just retarget animations. And now we need to find Coda's skeleton mesh here. So if we select Coda here and find his body under details, here's his skeletal mesh asset, and we can just right click and press copy, and then go back to our content browser, find the animation sequence, right click, retarget animations, and then paste it in this target skeleton mesh, and then just go ahead and select the animation, and then you can click Export Animations, and it'll pop up with where it needs to go. And so I'm going to put it in my animation folder, and I'm just going to call it Float. And then I'm going to hit Export and Export. And so now when I add Coda to my sequencer, and I'm going to drop Coda below my camera just so I can keep my camera next to my camera cut. And let's go ahead and under here, MetaHuman control rig, you can go ahead and delete that. And then under body, press this plus button and go to animation. And from here you can type in float and then go ahead and select the float. And now if I hit play, we can see Coda is doing his float thing. And so now I'm going to key Coda. So I'm gonna add a transform to him. Let's go ahead and minimize the body and face. And let's go to frame 1. I'm also gonna make sure that this is set to 24 frames per second. And let's also increase the amount of time that he's floating for. So I'm gonna make the end frame here, and then I'm gonna pull this outward as well. And we can also add another floating thing, so he's floating for a while. So just add another plus button and then type in float and select it. And let's make sure this is running in sync. Let me zoom in here. So there's a little bit of a gap, just pushing that forward. Let's test it out once more. Perfect. So now let's go back to frame 0. And let's find a position for Coda that we like. We go to Outliner, Coda. I'm gonna rotate him back a little bit. And I'm happy with this. So now I'm just going to key him here. And let's go ahead and open up the transform. Let's open up the location and rotation. When I go to my end frame here and I pull him up, he tends to drop down, so you kind of have to manually use it here. So I'm gonna pull him forward, and I want him just before he enters. So let's key this. And then let's go ahead and rotate him too. So I'm gonna rotate him on the yaw, and I'm gonna have him spin this way. And then he needs to go more in the center. And let's rotate him up a little bit. And I can push him a bit more back. Hit play. And so that's happening at a really slow speed. Let's go ahead and D-in, push these in a little bit more. So it happens a little bit faster. And nice, I'm gonna make the last frames. I'm gonna press 4 so that they're linear and he doesn't ease up. I still want him to maintain his speed, but maybe slow into it. And then now I think all we need to do is adjust our camera, and then I'm ready to render this out. So we already have our first camera selected. Now I'm gonna go to the last frame and pan inward. Let me go ahead and turn on cinematic mode so that I know that we're still center on our subject. And I'm happy with this, so I'm gonna go ahead and key it. And let's make our first frame here linear so that we don't ease into it, but we ease out. And so now let's go, I'm gonna go out of cinematic mode. I'm gonna select my camera, I'm gonna hit G to hide my icons, and I'm just gonna test this before I render it. And I think Coda's still moving a bit too slow. So I'm gonna go ahead and shorten the time a bit more. So let's take both the camera and Coda's transform and let's make it around 400 frames. We can also make Coda linear to start as well. So I'm just hitting 4 for the first frame, and then I'm gonna play. And I think his speed's looking better now. He's rotating. And cool, so now I'm just gonna render this out and I'll show you the final product. Let me know in the comments below what you think's gonna happen to Coda. If you enjoyed this video, please subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I also have other tutorials on my channel which I think you'll like. Thank you for watching, and I hope you have a great day.